Welcome into another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy, and today we're honored to interview Rear Admiral Bill Goodwin, a native of Dublin, Georgia, but now residing here on Lake Martin, and we're very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with him. So, Mr. Goodwin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Scott. I'm glad you came to see us today.
Yes, sir. And so, before we begin, could you just give us an overview of your military career?
Well, we only have a short period of time, as you told me, so I'll try and give you the Reader's Digest version. I went to the University of South Carolina and graduated in 1975. I was part of the Navy ROTC at South Carolina, so I graduated one day and the next day I was in the Navy for the next 35 years. Went off to flight training down in Pensacola, Florida, not too far away, and learned to fly airplanes the Navy way. Became a Navy pilot. Went off to several tours flying different kinds of aircraft off of aircraft carriers, as well as working ashore in different jobs. Probably one of my most memorable jobs was being the first captain of the USS Ronald Reagan. That was a tough job because we started with 20 sailors, and by the time the ship went to sea for the very first time, we had almost 3,000 sailors in the crew. So kind of a team building exercise, which was part of my job at that time. I had many other tours my time in the Navy, but the aircraft carrier was really probably the best one. And the secret is that a lot of people don't know, to be the captain of an aircraft carrier, you have to be a Navy pilot or a backseater, either a Maverick or a Goose if you speak Top Gun. Because the aviators know the air operations around the aircraft carrier, and then we're taught all about ship driving and nuclear reactors, which is my job now. Afterwards, we moved off to Germany for a couple of years, and then back to Seattle, Washington. I was in charge of the USS Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Battle Group. Then in Norfolk, Virginia, I was in charge of all the aircraft carriers and squadrons in the Atlantic Fleet for training, manning, and equipping purposes. I retired 7 years ago out of Washington, D.C., and my wife and I moved to Sweet Home, Alabama, and we live at Lake Martin, and we love it.
Yes, sir. And so, what was the decision behind choosing the Navy as your military choice?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because my father was in the Navy in World War II, but just for a short period of 4 years, and it probably had some influence on me, but I always wanted to be a pilot. My plan was to go to college, learn how to fly, do my time in the military, and then go fly for an airline that you've probably never heard of called Eastern Airlines. They went bankrupt back in the 80s, I believe. So a lot of people say you made a good choice by staying in the Navy, because if you'd become an airline pilot, you would have been in a bankrupt organization. But that was my passion. I wanted to be a Navy pilot and learn how to fly, and fly well off of aircraft carriers.
Yes, sir. And so you mentioned learning to fly the Navy way. What does that entail?
Well, the Navy has lots of precision in its flying, because when you're landing on an aircraft carrier deck, you don't have much margin for error left or right or high or low. The landing area is about 400 to 500 feet long, but you have a tail hook that helps you stop. So at night especially, you have to be very precise in your flying to make sure that you land on the numbers and you don't hurt somebody or something. It's a very rigorous training program, and you practice, practice, practice.
Yes, sir. And so you entered the Navy under the Ford administration and retired under Obama. What foreign policy changes did you see during that time?
I would tell you the biggest change in the world was terrorism. Terrorism's been around a long time. If you go back in history, Thomas Jefferson really fought the first terrorist war that the United States encountered with the Barbary pirates on the north coast of Africa. So terrorism's been around, but then it became more and more of a threat, not only to groups and other countries, but to the national security of the United States. It's a formless enemy. They don't wear uniforms. I can't take you to their capital, their seat of government. I can't show you the lines on a map where terrorists live. It's not a well-defined enemy. But that still doesn't deter the United States and other countries in a coalition of the willing for deterring terrorism throughout the world. Because quite frankly, we can't enjoy our way of life if we're looking over our shoulder every minute.
Yes, sir. And so would you say that there are any other changes or I'd say, challenges now that the military faces now that maybe they didn't face when you first entered?
I think there have been some changes in the military that change the complexion of the military and the people that are allowed to enter. You have to remember that it wasn't an all-volunteer force when I first joined, but soon after I became in the Navy, the all-volunteer force was the norm. So people have to be recruited. There wasn't a draft where people would be conscripted into the military. So I think that if you look over the last 40 years of our nation's military and you realize that every person that served in the military, currently or in the past, was a volunteer, I think that's huge. I don't know that many other countries, to include maybe Israel, North Korea, where they have conscription, that they have to serve in the military for a certain period of time. It's pretty remarkable our country defends itself with a force of volunteers.
Yes, sir. And you bring up North Korea, and currently it seems as though our relationship with them is probably the most volatile it's been. What are your thoughts on that relationship going forward?
Yeah, North Korea is an interesting problem. A lot of rhetoric. I think that when people start talking big, there's obviously a chance for miscalculation. Someone would interpret something or something said or some action as provocation. I don't think anyone in the world, for that matter, is ready to even suggest that there be exchange of nuclear weapons with any country, much less North Korea. I don't know that it's been determined that North Korea has that capability. They certainly brag about it, but I don't know that they have that capability. Bill Goodwin's opinion.
Yes, sir.
I think that as we develop our friendships around the world, we should develop those friendships with who are the bad guys in the region. And I would suggest to you that North Korea is a bad guy in that part of Asia. If you look in the Middle East, it's obvious that our country is very concerned about Iran and the things that happen there. Afghanistan is a land that has been fought over and fought inside for many, many years, but still it is almost a haven for terrorism because they can hide in the mountains and they can do their business, not only from there, but nowadays on the internet they can do their business. So North Korea, I think it'll be tense. I don't know that Kim Jong-un will do anything really radical or, in my mind, stupid, because I think the free world would not allow him to get away with it. If he's threatening or he even attacks someone with anything short of nuclear weapons, there's going to be a swift response. I don't know what it is, but I don't think the free world can allow someone that says they have nuclear weapons to be able to run ragged all over everybody.
Good night, boss.
See ya.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
When you're a business owner, your mind is always on the job.
Anything before I go?
All set.
So is ours. At Frankenmuth Insurance, our independent agents work with you to customize coverage, improve safety, and help prevent losses. Let us take some of the work off your plate. Start a frank conversation with your local agent.
Again, this is another edition of TPI Talk, and we're here today with Rear Admiral Bill Goodwin. And Mr. Goodwin, you bring up military service, and for the most part now, people are doing this by choice, and they're not being recruited to do so, at least in terms of a draft style. So, but it doesn't appear as though people are as eager to, want to enlist as they were in previous times. So, what would you suggest would be the motivating factor behind that? And for someone that's on the fence potentially wanting to enlist, what would be your advice to them?
Let me take your last question first. On the fence, it's a good opportunity for people who are fresh out of high school or even later in education that aren't quite sure what they want to do in life. I would suggest to you that a high school graduate going into the military has got a great opportunity for 4, 6, 8 years, whatever the commitment is for that particular service, to learn things like time management, discipline, see the world. There's a great big world out there, and I and my family have had the opportunity to see a lot of it. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So travel. The pay and benefits are okay if you're in for four years, and I think that's 4 to 6 years is the minimum requirement nowadays. I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that one. That it's an opportunity to get your feet on the ground, financially, emotionally, If you've started a family early, then maybe you can develop that marriage and mature a little bit. Now, some people are ready to move on with their education, and maybe post-college, then they would consider the military. I would suggest to you that college students that have served in the military on campus do a lot better than somebody right out of high school. They're disciplined. They know how to manage their time. They know when to study. They know what to do on Friday night, and I think people know what I mean. They know how to go after something. They've been taught that in their time in the military. So I think that I would suggest that if you're ready for a military career, go ahead and do it. If you don't think you're ready, maybe go on to college and pursue your career ambition that way. I think a lot of young people are a little reluctant for a military career or even military service because the world is such a volatile place. Things change every day. As the captain of a ship, I used to tell the crew that world events control our lives. Because something happens on the other side of the world, we may have to leave home on that ship and go to that area of the world at a moment's notice. So to that extent, world events would control your lives, and some people can't commit to that. You know, they want to be home with the family or mom and dad or whatever it might be.
Gotcha. And so, as we mentioned, you served under several different presidents and several different administrations. So, if a person in the military doesn't necessarily agree with the politics of the person who is the commander-in-chief at that time, how difficult or what helps aid in the ability to detach yourself from the politics and understanding what you have to do to be the best officer possible?
Well, number one, there's a law that doesn't allow people in government to engage in partisan politics. It's called the Hatch Act, signed many, many years ago. Secondly, people in the military raise their right hand upon enlistment or becoming an officer, and they swear that they will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that they will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution and the country whose course it directs, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, so help me God. Nowhere in there did we swear allegiance to the Republicans or the Democrats or the Independents. We didn't swear allegiance to the President or the Commander-in-Chief. We swore allegiance to the Constitution. It's the framework of our country. Our founding fathers had it right way back to George Washington and Thomas Jefferson that said, we're not going to pledge allegiance to General Washington because that'd just be like being back in good old England where you swore allegiance to the king. And we weren't creating a monarchy in our country, we were creating a democracy. So the notion of becoming a military soldier, sailor, airman, marine, or Coast Guardsman, that you support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And like I said, you just don't engage in partisan politics. I was asked many times by reporters and TV talk show hosts, well, what do you think about fill in the blank, a policy that was the current hotbed for the administration or the Supreme Court or whoever it is? Quite frankly, my personal opinion doesn't matter because I support and defend the policies of the Department of Defense and I support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And quite frankly, they weren't ready for that answer, but it's the truth. And that's how, me personally, what I would approach the partisan political things that would go on in our country.
So I think that's a great answer.
You weren't ready for that answer.
No, I think that's what I was hoping. I think that's how it should be, and so I think that obviously I don't have a military background, but I would hope that whoever was serving was there to represent the United States itself, and not necessarily the administration.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. So I want to make sure I get this right. You're currently serving as the director of the Nuclear Power Generation Systems Program in the College of Engineering at Auburn University. Could you elaborate a little more on that program?
You did great by getting all the words correct.
All right.
It is a mouthful. The Nuclear Power Generation Systems Program is not nuclear engineering. A lot of students think that, well, I'm going to learn what it is to be a nuclear engineer. Nuclear engineering is all about the reactor. This program is a minor, 6 courses, 16 credit hours that we take literally anybody on campus, but it's designed for engineers, mechanical, electrical, chemical, industrial. As a matter of fact, we have some students in this minor who are from Benjamin Russell High School, and they're here now pursuing this minor to learn how do you make electricity using nuclear fission. There are 2 nuclear power plants in our state. And a lot of people don't even know that. There's one down on the Chattahoochee River near Dothan, Alabama, and there's one up on the Tennessee River, right, by Decatur. And if you go 65 north towards Nashville, you can look over to your left as you're heading that way and see the nuclear power plant run by the Tennessee Valley Authority. Lots of companies, to include Alabama Power, Georgia Power, TVA, that have nuclear power plants. They need engineers of all kinds to operate and maintain these power plants. So it's really a unique program. Maybe a dozen schools in the country have a minor like this that teaches engineers, and really it's open to anybody on a campus. As I said, we have physics majors. There's a young lady in the course that I teach this semester is a geology major. Chemistry, physics, applied math, so it's open to anybody on campus. And we teach them how do you make electricity using nuclear fission.
Yes, sir. And so how far into the future do you see that would be a primary source of electricity?
I think that nuclear power is going to be around for a long time. Coal, natural gas, there's a lot of it out there, especially with a technique called fracking. That natural gas is being discovered in vast quantities, but there's only so much of it. Now, true, there's only so much uranium in the world that can be used for fuel in nuclear reactors, but there's a follow-on fuel to that called thorium. Thorium is in vast quantities too that could be used as fuel to produce the same heat for making steam that drives a turbine that rotates a shaft that makes the generator spin and makes electricity. I think there's a huge future. As a matter of fact, when Alabama Power starts their day, the first question to ask is, how is Plant Farley down at Dothan, the nuclear power plant, what's its status? Because that's the base load. And then they'll add on coal burning plants, natural gas plants. And summertime and wintertime, they might need a little extra, so they spill some water over Lake Martin and use the hydroelectric power out of the river system in the state.
That's very neat. I'm glad that you gave the explanation there. And something too that, you know, by the time this interview airs, it will be Veterans Day, and so I had a two-part question for you. What does it mean for you to be, or what does it mean to be a veteran from your perspective? And then too, I think a lot of times there's a misconception between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Could you give your explanation on what the true meaning of the two?
Thanks for asking that, Scott, because there is a huge misconception, and you can see where people would get confused by it too. Memorial Day is the day that we celebrate and honor those who have died in service to their country. And that's the end of May. And now Veterans Day, the first part of November, is the day that we celebrate and honor all of those who have served in the past and who are currently serving today. So it's all the active duty today and plus people who have served in the past. I feel honored to be a veteran. I spent 35 years in the Navy. I don't know what the average service in the military is, but that's right now greater than half of my life. My wife likes to say I have a servant heart. I like to do for others, and to be a part of something that is greater than myself is why I joined the military. It's me out there helping preserve and protect the freedoms that people like my father, maybe your father, and our forefathers, they fought for us to have the quality of life we have today and live with freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to bear arms, and all of those freedoms that are articulated in those founding documents of our country. I bleed red, white, and blue. Some people would say, well, what does that mean? I said, well, I'm a patriot at heart. I go to the Major League Baseball game, and when the game starts, I take off my ball cap, and I put my hand over my heart, and I sing the national anthem. And I sing it, I think it's great because the teams do too. Mm-hmm. They line up on the baselines. They take their ball caps off. It's one of the best examples I know of patriotism in our country and honoring our flag. Now there's a current thing going on with the NFL teams and how they either stand, sit, kneel, or whatever. I would suggest to them just leave the teams in the locker room before the game, do the national anthem, then they can come out on the field. That's the way it happens in college football.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if I answered your question,
no,
but being a patriot and then my service qualifies me as a veteran. I'm proud to be a veteran.
Yes, sir. And so you've lived, as you discussed, all over the world at some point, in either points of your life, and but now you currently reside in Lake Martin. How did you choose that as your place of residency?
Well, Sweet Home Alabama came calling because our two children went to college in the state of Alabama. I'd spent some time in Pensacola as a flight instructor and then as a student, and my wife taught school down in the Pensacola area. So when it was time to retire, we thought about Pensacola as a great place to retire to. But with our children in college, we discovered Lake Martin. So it came down to this: Pensacola, Florida, hurricanes and saltwater, or Lake Martin, Alabama, freshwater and tornadoes. It's kind of a trade, but we love Lake Martin, and we love Alexander City. That's town to us. That's where we go to church. That's where we shop, and that's where we get taken care of at the emergency room. So we love where we live.
We're glad to have you here. So before we wrap things up, as we said, you're a native of Georgia. Big game is this weekend, but you are employed by Auburn. Do you have a preference of the two?
I do have a preference for this game, and I'll explain what that means. But being an employee at Auburn University, I kind of have some blue and orange blood in me because of working here, and it's a great college. It's a great university. It's a great campus too. Actually, I probably have more angst about the South Carolina Auburn football game, being a graduate of the University of South Carolina. And people ask me, how do you reconcile those two, playing football or some other sport? I said, well, it's real easy. Two children without a state tuition in Alabama, that's some extra money. I get a paycheck from the state of Alabama, and I say follow the money, War Eagle. So that's how I differentiate with it. But the Georgia game's going to be great. They've got a great team, and we look for a good game on Saturday.
Yes, sir. Rear Admiral Bill Goodwin, sincerely appreciate you joining us today, and thank you again for your service. We can't thank you enough for that. And again, when this airs, this will be on Veterans Day, so happy Veterans Day to you.
Thanks, Scott.
Well.
I appreciate your time and your great questions.
Yes, sir. Well, again, this has been another edition of TPI Talk. My name is Scott Hardy. See you next time.
Spring has sprung in the Lake Martin area, and now is the best time to see the good guys the locals know, Alex City Marine. With last year being our best year yet, Landau Pontoons has increased Alex City Marine's allocation of Landaus for the 17 season. Our Suzuki outboard selections are at an all-time high. Alex City Marine is now also Lake Martin's exclusive Manitou pontoon dealer, with a full line of the luxurious Manitou Tritoon with patented V-Tune technology for top performance. Get the best selection now of Landau and Manitou pontoons, all at the Marine the locals know, Alex City Marine, Lake Martin.